and welcome back to Indiescovery, Rock, Paper, Shotgun's indie game podcast. Blimey O'Reilly, it's episode 9, and this week we're finally confessing to our crimes. Our indie game crimes, that is. Don't worry, I won't be admitting to the time I accidentally forgot to scan a single pack of microwave rice at the supermarket and walked out without paying for it. It's the only crime I've ever committed, and I think about it all the time. After that, we're going to chat about some indies we've been playing. I refuse to introduce myself so the police can't identify me, and I'm joined as ever by my wonderful co-hosts, Guides writer Rebecca.
Hello.
And reviews editor Rachel.
Hello.
Hello, my name's actually Liam. How are we both doing? You alright?
Good. I'm dying to know more about this rice story.
Stole a pack of rice.
You stole it. Just swiped it. You snatched that rice.
That was the start and end of my career as a criminal. I think about that all the time.
One day you'll have a bag of rice stolen from you. Someone will come along and steal a bag of your rice, and then karma, girl.
But then I'll feel finally like my karma has been reset.
At peace.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've never stolen
moment,
anything.
I'll die.
I'm a good girl.
You never stolen anything?
No.
Not even by accident?
No. Like, I know people
Really?
accidentally walk out of, like, shops and stuff with things, but I've not. Maybe I should try it.
Yeah, now is the time.
Now is the time to try it.
You ever stolen anything, Rebecca? Let's just get it all out.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share this. I accidentally, because I was 3 and didn't understand the concept of property, stole a bottle of matey bubble bath from Morrison's.
That's so 90s. I love that so
90s.
much.
Yeah, but it was, I don't know. Are my parents technically the ones responsible for that? I don't know. But apparently they got me out to the car and I'd like got it all tucked up in my coat or whatever because I just wanted to give it a cuddle.
Oh, that's adorable.
You know, last episode you told the story about when you went to McDonald's after the Power Rangers movie and you said, I'm too full from the movie.
Yeah.
Do you think in that moment they took you out for dinner and you went, I'm too full from my crimes?
Delicious crimes.
Oh, goodness me. I mean, I'm glad that we've established that this is on the same level. I mean, you've not quite said how old you were when the rice incident occurred. But
27.
See, if it was me, I was going to be like, oh, you know, now surely you need to like always put rice in the food bank or something. Like that's the moral solution.
I've been on the other end though, where I've been in retail and someone's stolen something and I've just been like, go for it, babes. I'm not going to stop you.
It.
I definitely
I'll
understand
simply pretend
the
I
impulse.
didn't say.
Yeah.
Just like slowly just turn away. I do not perceive you. Go for it. I worked at this really like expensive like Japanese character store, which will not be named, but there's literally only one in the UK, so work it out yourself. And yeah, people used to shoot their shot, and I used to be like, "Go for it, babes! I want to be a game journalist."
Yeah. Oh, God.
That Gudetama pin. I didn't see nothing. Swipe it, girl. Yeah, incredible.
Take 2. See how I care.
Not 2. Let's leave some for everyone. To steal.
Leave some for everyone to steal. We have no stock. We've taken no money today. But
No profit margin.
Everyone
not my
took
problem.
a fair amount individually, so it's all fine.
The only retail sort of adjacent job I ever worked was in a bank, so I don't think I could have done the same.
Don't think that would have worked well for you.
They
babes.
don't tend to love that.
No, when people steal money. Before we dive into today's episode, I have a little bit of pod admin to tell you both about. I haven't actually told you about this offline. So since the last episode went live, we've received our first 1-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Oh,
Now,
Congrats!
because it's me and I can't take feedback properly, I've been obsessing over this for the best part of a week. So I've come up with 3 situations that I think led to this 1-star review because they didn't leave a message, just 1 star. No
Wait, there was
comment.
no words? There was nothing?
No words, which is the coward's rating. So I've come up with 3 different scenarios. Would you like to hear them?
Yes.
Go on.
Okay, so scenario 1, I think the listener was a space scientist. Is that what they're called? Is there a name for that?
Do you mean an astrophysicist?
Yeah.
Now we'll go with space scientist. So because of their profession, I think they're disgusted by the way that Apple uses stars as a rating system. And they're aware that if our solar system had 5 stars, we'd go all crispy like a bunch of fish fingers on a George Foreman grill. And also that much mass would probably cause like space to collapse or whatever. So I don't understand space. And if I think about it too much, I start to freak out. So I think they thought 1 star was like the perfect amount of stars because it keeps us warm, it makes our planet lush and vibrant, and without it, well, cockerels wouldn't have much else to live for. So thank you to the kind space scientist for rating us 1 precious life-providing star. I think that was very nice of them. That's one scenario.
Yeah.
Scenario 2, in the distant future, I think Indiescovery is celebrating its 10-year anniversary and is the most popular podcast on the planet. Current US President Bob Iger, who was elected following the 2028 Disney acquisition of Western democracy, has thrown a parade for the 3 of us in New York City. And as we wave from the deck of our private blimps came back into style in 2031, a crack can be heard from the street below. And before any of us can react, I clutch my chest in confusion and slowly blood begins to dribble between my fingers. And as colour drains from my face, I stumble and collapse onto our huge pile of Casper mattress sponsorship money. I've been assassinated, right? And although you're both secretly quite happy that I'm dead because you can finally replace me with Ed, you're also aware that I'm going to be well irritating as a ghost, which are real in the future and haunt everyone. So in a last-ditch attempt to stop me from becoming an intolerable ghost, you use our pink-branded time machine to travel back to April 2023 to give the podcast 1 star, which humbles us all so much we never get famous enough that I'm assassinated by a spider crab with a sniper rifle. Option 3 is someone started listening and thought one of us was irritating. So I'd like you to decide which of these 3 scenarios led to our first 1-star review.
I don't mind. I'm just so glad we had it because without it, this wouldn't have happened. So can it be all of them? Can it possibly be all 3?
It could be all of them. Can you tell that I was really procrastinating doing a Star Wars guide today?
I tell you what, I like the second one because I like those parades as well, where like I can just imagine all 3 of us getting our own like those giant balloons that are kind of super cartoony.
Oh my goodness!
And I love that idea about all 3 of us just like being suspended in the air in balloon form. Of course, you know the part about you getting brutally and utterly assassinated by a spider crab isn't ideal, but.
But we've always wanted to solve an outlandish murder mystery, Rachel. So you and I are the perfect candidates to work out what the hell just happened.
True.
Yes, and Liam can follow us around in ghost form and help us solve his murder.
God, yes.
Oh my god, it'd be like Ghost Trick.
Yes, it would be. Amazing.
Or the upcoming novel Grave Expectations by author Alice Bell that you should pre-order immediately.
Out on May the 2nd.
So yeah, I vote for 2.
I hope it's May the 2nd, not May the 4th. Sorry, Alice.
I think it's May the 4th, actually.
Right, well, something's happening on May the 2nd and something's happening on May the 4th, and either way, you should totally pre-order Alice's book.
Oh, it's on Star Wars Day, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah,
you're
is,
right. Oh, yes. Sorry, Alice. Yeah, sorry to get so excited for your murder as well, Liam.
I know.
You did plan it yourself, so, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, me too. I mean, I wrote about it, so let's not analyse that too deeply.
Couldn't be the 3rd one. Couldn't. I just
it's
can't, I
absolutely
don't
not the
see
3rd
it.
one. It could be a 4th one, which is we spend 10 minutes of the podcast talking bullshit before we get into the topic that's in the title.
I mean, that could be it.
Yeah.
I don't think
I've heard some people really don't like that, which, you know, not in our podcast, just in podcasts in general. Yeah, I know. I know. And you know.
Oh, screw that. Well, for those losers that don't like it, let's get into our first section.
Deal with it.
Hello, both. Why am I saying hi to you both again?
Hello.
This is
Hi.
15 minutes into the recording.
There you go.
So, you know how we normally record in a big spooky house in the middle of Bath,
Of course.
right? Because we're all together. We're definitely not in different parts of the country. And you know how that's being renovated, so we're now in this church that we found in the side of a country lane?
Yeah.
Naturally.
Yeah. Oh, well, who's this? Who's this old man walking towards our podcasting equipment? Well, hold on. Let me just... Sir, would you like to use my microphone? Hello. Hello. I haven't decided the voice yet. Hello, young people. It's me. I'm Father Dringus Godliman. Welcome to my... What are you doing? You're recording a little podcast in here, are we?
Yes, Father Dringus gone. I'm so sorry. What was your name again? Father Dingus.
What are you...
Father.
That's it. Father Dingus.
Also, Father, just for our listeners out there, what do you look like? I mean, I'm looking at.
I've never had to explain myself on a podcast before.
Very handsome.
I'm just so impressed with what a podcast is. You're doing so good. Like, don't even worry about it.
Yes, I'm absolutely ripped. I'm actually only 24 years old. This is just how I talk. Welcome to my church. I'm a man of the cloth. I can't sustain this voice very long. I'm a man of the cloth, but actually the indie cloth. I'm an employee of Valve Software, and they've got a flat structure. I'm 24. Yes, very talented software engineer. And so handsome. It's got a flat structure, so I started my job in Seattle, Washington, and I just rolled my desk straight out of the office and into this church, where I now let people confess their indie game sins. That's right. I'm the I'm here to give a bit of texture to this.
Yes, Father? Please go on.
Oh, it's been a long week. Anyway, I've got a big confessional booth over here. I'm going to get in one side, and then the other side's big enough for 3 people and a bunch of microphones, which is pretty convenient.
Wow.
So I'm going to get in this one side. I'm going to give this young man here, older than me, 7 years older than me, a piece of paper. Like in Catholicism, confession is done by the priest handing you a piece of paper with some questions on it, and you can confess to me. All right, bye, off I go.
Bye.
Well, he was a bit lazy as a character, wasn't he? Shall we go?
We are going to get so many more requests, though. Like, every time a mysterious guest shows up.
Oh, goodness me.
What a wonderful man.
They're all so beloved.
I feel so safe with him that I can confess all my indie gaming sins.
Oh, that's good, isn't it? Well, I've got this little piece of paper here. It's lovely. It's written in red ink, which is that's
like
religious,
blood?
isn't it? Oh God, yeah. Oh,
Is that the Father's blood?
I hope it's the Father's blood. Or whose blood is it? Oh, look at that! A mystery appears that we can try and solve by the end of this podcast section.
God.
So yes, as the terribly lazy character just told us, we're gonna confess to some of our indie game sins. I felt like both of you lost what little respect you had for me during that. Looking into your eyes.
Absolutely the opposite.
Not yet.
So, first thing, should I keep up I'll keep it up. Right, on this piece of paper, that's definitely real. I have question 1. It says, what's your most played indie game? Who wants to go first? What's your most played indie game on Steam?
Ooh. Let me I'll have a look at mine.
Just let me pull up my piece of paper that's definitely not a Google Doc. Even though I know full well what it is, I'm just stalling for time.
I'm very excited to hear about this because Rebecca, we were talking about this yesterday, and you implied that yours is quite spicy.
Yes,
it's pretty
Rebecca,
damn
you go
spicy.
first.
Okay, you go first, Rebecca.
Okay.
What is the game and how long have you played it for?
So hold on, I'm going to talk around this first because your guess, Liam, was Honey Pop, as I recall.
Yes, it was.
I have taken. I went and
guess.
I wrote down because I'm weird and I write things down even though they're already readily available to me. My top 20 Steam games by time, and Honey Pop was at number 4, so you weren't far off.
With how many hours?
With 34.4 hours.
Oh, that's a lot of Honey Pop. Okay,
That's a lot of Honey Pop, and Honey Pop 2 is at number 6 with 25.9 hours. In case you were wondering.
Very
I've
nice.
Didn't enjoy the
I have
sequel.
not played Honeycomb Studio because I think that one's kind of gross. I don't know why that's the line for me, but it is.
That's
Can
very
you just
consistent.
quickly explain what Honey Pop is?
Honey
for
Pop
our
is
listeners?
a delightful match 3 puzzle game. Very casual, very enjoyable. Also, an extremely NSFW dating sim. Like extremely NSFW. Yes, and it was one of the things that I played a lot of over the pandemic. And in fact, the one that is in the number 1 spot is a game that I do really enjoy. It's really, really good. But one of the reasons that I think I've played it so damn much is because it came out on something like the 25th of February 2020.
Oh,
And-
right. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think that part of what drew me into this game was the sudden massive abundance of time and lack of ability to do anything else just as the game launched. And yeah, my most played game on Steam with 76.1 hours is Max Gentleman's Sexy Business.
I'm Googling this right now.
What?
And
Max?
yeah, I don't think I've ever mentioned it to either of you before.
Sexy Business?
Max Gentleman, Sexy Business.
Yes.
Father better cover his ears for a lot of Rebecca's.
What?
Oh yeah, to be
Earmuffs.
honest, right? Like I play across a lot of platforms, and there is a definite theme to what I tend to play on Steam.
What? Can you explain what this is?
It is. So it is again. It's a dating sim. Got a lot of visual novel, some quite risque elements to it. Let's say it has an NSFW mode if you should choose to employ it, but it is a dating sim mixed with a sort of business management simulator. So you play a Victorian business tycoon who loses their fortune, and in order to regain your massive, obscene amounts of wealth, you are allying yourself with all of these other business executives who are super hot, sexy people who run businesses in various industries, and doing lots of mini games and lots of weird little, very satisfying like resource distribution to watch the numbers go up activities. And yeah, it's just it mushes together a lot of gameplay genres, and it turns out when you are locked in your house for several months with absolutely nothing going on to really take your mind off of the existential dread from this unprecedented, like, once in a lifetime global pandemic, this sort of game will really get its hooks into you. But I will say, I do love this. I genuinely love this game. I'm not trying to knock it. I've played it so much because I really, really enjoy it. An immensely satisfying combination of genres that I really liked.
I'm enjoying this screenshot that has a character called Antoine Hardmeat, which sounds like a character I would come up with.
He's my boy, my sweet, sweet boy.
Which one's he? Is he the blonde guy on the horse in the...
He is the blonde guy on the horse, yes.
With the flowers? Incredible.
Yes. And his whole character arc is that he lacks self-confidence, so obviously...
Oh, well, we already know that's your type based on other episodes of this podcast.
Also, he is completely naked on the horse.
He is completely naked on the horse. He can get
1,000%.
nakeder on that horse if you have the completely NSFW mode active.
Yeah, those that bouquet is very carefully placed.
It is.
Right, okay,
Doesn't have to be that. Yeah, I hope that, like, we never set ourselves up as like a family podcast, did we? That wasn't a promise we made.
No. Absolutely not.
Good, because yeah, Max Gentleman's Sexy Business.
It's interesting because this is a huge part of Steam's offering that no one ever really does talk about. Like,
yes.
What's interesting about this is it seems to be like, it's got male and female characters in it, which you don't normally see in games like this on Steam. And also, I just read a review there that said that you don't have to engage with the NSW.
No, you don't at all. You can just be friends with the execs if you want. And it probably makes sense actually to inform at this point, that it shares a lot of, or at least some of the executive production team with Monster Prom, which is another very like LGBTQ inclusive and like very positive sort of like...
The dots are connecting for me, Rebecca.
Similar dating sim. And so... when you kind of look at it from that point of view, I think it starts to make more sense. And that's actually how I found out about this game in the first place, was that the same people were kind of involved. It's not the same production team, but it's got a lot of the same creatives in the kind of peripheries of its development.
That's a great confession.
I love this game, and I kind of, one of the reasons, because not behind the scenes thing, is I kind of pushed to do this episode, and one of the reasons was that I've never mentioned this game on this podcast, and I've only mentioned it a couple of times over on the RPS site, and I was like, this is like a huge part of my like experience of the pandemic and lockdowns, was playing this game. And I really wanted to kind of give it that shout out and give it its due for the the influence it had on me. And it is a very very positive and very affirming game as well. And so I was like, I want to talk about this more. I kind of don't want to drop it.
For sure.
That's a great thing to talk about. 70 hours.
Yeah,
so
76.1.
How many playthroughs is that?
That's just one playthrough, but trying to 100% everything, which I have not quite done yet.
Oh, damn.
Oh, wow.
But there's a lot of content in this. There's like, the way it sort of cycles through the story mode is there's various different like levels to, I think it's about four levels where you're sort of like building up your empire again, and then a big story beat happens, and then you start from the beginning but with like an extra complication, and your relationships intact, but all your stats reset. I have now seen the true ending. So I've kind of done the main story and all of the romance routes, but they did a content update around Halloween 2021 that added like loads more mini games. It added interactions between the NPCs, which is the thing that I've still like feel like I've barely scratched the surface with, is that now the NPCs all have relationships to each other as well, and
wow.
added loads more visual novel sections. There's so much going in this game. Yeah, it's
damn.
a really fun game. It amused me as well because I was like, I had to check, confirm a suspicion, which is that I have played this game alone for slightly longer than I have played my second and third most played games on Steam combined.
Okay.
Oh, hell yeah.
What are those games, out of curiosity?
Unsurprisingly, it's Monster Prom 1 and Danganronpa 1. Those are
that's
the two most unsurprising answers I could possibly give, which is why it's so weird that I've mentioned those games a ton on this podcast and I've never mentioned this game before.
Can I ask, and you don't have to answer and we don't have to put it in, do you think the reason why you haven't mentioned it is because it has the sexual content aspect?
I think, honestly, that may be part of the reason, but the main reason is that I am less actively in this game's fandom right at this minute than I am with Monster Prom and Danganronpa, which is still kind of... Monster Prom is still ongoing, Danganronpa is still ongoing for me because I'm still in the middle of the series, whereas with this game, I've pretty much finished it. The dev team have moved on to new stuff now, and so it's just less at the forefront of my mind. I haven't played it in over a year, which I didn't realise how long it had been, but that kind of makes sense.
Damn.
I do intend to go back to it, but there's a lot to play, and it's really hard to go back and like get the last few things in a really huge game, especially in a job like ours. But yeah, I mean... There is an aspect where, like, yeah, it's kind of... It's always weird to get over the barrier of being like, I actually play quite a lot of NSFW, like, dating sim hybrid games, but I don't mind admitting that. And it's more that it's just kind of not been on my radar as much lately.
Yeah,
it's great.
I think there's like a maybe like a negative view of games like that on Steam as well, and not every game is gonna approach it in the same way. And...
Yes, there's a lot of questionable stuff and a lot of crud in that genre on Steam, so I understand why people are kind of wary when approaching it.
It's like one of those genres where the bad side of it is really terrible. So I feel like a lot of people shy away from that, especially some of the really good ones like this one.
I've only ever approached games like this from a recommendation from someone whose opinion I already trust from other things. And so like Max Gentleman and Honey Pop, those were from YouTubers who I'd already kind of like got good recommendations from and got a good read on stuff they wouldn't promote.
Yes.
You know? And outside of that, I have not played many NSFW games because it quickly, I imagine, goes to some pretty bad places. From what I've seen. But yeah, I would happily, like, if you are 18 plus, happily recommend this to anyone. It's such a fun game, and as you say, it's like you don't need to engage with it as a dating sim at all. You can just kind of hang out with fun characters, and
because that's the thing about these games, they're campy.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's what I can see myself playing.
Very
them.
camp. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is great because I'm looking at Bonbon von Valentine's profile.
Yes.
And it lists all her stuff and it just says cup size. Excellent.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they all have stats, but they're all like just very very faux Victorian descriptions rather than
God,
actual
that
stats.
humour is so good.
I like that. Oh, cool recommendation. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Oh, I feel so much better for confessing as well.
There you go. Oh, good.
Wow,
yes.
you look lighter. Like,
I see Father Dringus
lifted.
nodding through the little confession stat.
Is he nodding or is he kind of like nodding off, like sleeping?
Well, he is very young. Yeah, he's young.
yeah,
right?
he is.
Significantly younger than the three of us.
I keep whiplashing back and forth between this person. I guess the immediate like image that came to my mind was this old man, and now that I know he's 24, I can't differentiate.
What's your most played indie game, Rachel?
Oh, it's Stardew Valley, innit?
Of course,
nice.
of course.
To be fair, my first one is friend of the podcast, Henry, plays a lot on my Steam account. So a lot of like the first one of it is actually his, which is Into the Breach, which he's played infuriatingly 99.6 hours.
I hate that. Just boot it up for 40 minutes, please. Please.
And I was like last night when I told him we were going to talk about it, he was like, no. And I get it, because if he plays that game again, it won't be at 100, it'll be at 200. Like, Into the Breach is a really good game.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, talking about addictive games, my next one is Stardew Valley, and surprisingly, I've got 88.7 hours in it. That's not including other ways I've played it as well, like a bit on mobile and Switch. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
That
it's
is
quite common
wild.
for Stardew players to have like it on multiple consoles, multiple different save files. But PC is the best because of all the mods you can do and stuff. So yep, no surprises there. That game is so
80
good.
hours. Wow.
Amazing.
What's
know.
next on that list after Stardew?
So this is a surprising one for me because okay, it's This War of Mine. I've put 51 hours into that game.
Wow,
And
that's a lot for
yeah.
that game.
That game is very sobering. It's a very serious
Yeah.
game about survivors during a war. And I don't know what it is about it. I really like 11-bit Studios as games. Literally the one after it is Frostpunk. I've put 39 hours into Frostpunk. Like
Wow.
there's something about those two like management games that approaches the genre in just like a different way to anything else I've played, and especially This War of Mine, where yeah, it's kind of fucked up, like really fucked up kind of game. But I just there's like beautiful elements of storytelling in there that I've just not played in any of the games. So I've like frequently returned to it to play as different characters, like find different scenarios, and they've always released updates. And oh god, they added like the Little Ones update, which added children. And so all the money bought from that went to charities, and they did a massive push for
Wow.
Ukraine like last year. But I don't know, there's just something about that game that keeps pulling me back in. Like it's definitely not a fun game.
But what is it?
But
I've actually
it's
never
challenging.
played it.
Yeah, I was about
What
to
is
say,
it?
I'm not that familiar with it.
Yeah, what does it actually
Let me
do?
get into it. So in This War of Mine, you play as 3 different characters who are trying to survive a kind of unnamed conflict, but it's so you can like copy and paste whatever kind of war situation you would like to imagine onto that, so that it could be the idea is you play as these 3 people who have moved into an abandoned house, and the situation is you just have to survive, and that's through encounters with strangers, encounters with soldiers. It's very much the kind of game that is kind of, it's not from the soldier's perspective, which I think a lot of war games were. This is one of the first games to kind of be like, there are people in war as well. Like, we want to tell their stories. And so this is that game.
Wow.
But yeah, and I think it's known because of, there's a lot of like tough decision making you have to do. And Frostpunk is the same, but on a more fantastical level. Yeah, I think a lot of people remember it because it's quite shocking, but actually, like, outside of that, it's just a very human game about something that's quite serious, and like I said before, it's just quite sobering. So it's really good, but if you don't think you're in the mood for like Disco Elysium or stuff, like, this game is like a whole other, like, you need to be in a certain place when you play this game and understand exactly what you're dealing with. There's nothing particularly gory, there's nothing particularly like really shocking about it, but it's just war, isn't it? It's just horrible. So
it's got that kind of, that darkness to it.
Yes.
That you just need to be in a place you can deal with it. Yeah, I get you.
There's like a nugget of truth in everything in that game. The amount of work that 11-bit have done, this game came out like years ago, but in terms of like charity events and supporting countries going through similar situations is like, honestly, that studio, incredible. But yeah, and then we've got Frostpunk, which is kind of the same, a bunch of people trying to survive. It's more of a city builder than a survival sim. But just, again, it's just the mechanics are really well done. I like the story of Frostpunk a bit more because it is removed a bit from reality, and that it's kind of like post-industrial Victorian era. Also, I have this really weird thing where I just like, who doesn't like a big machine? And so the generator in Frostpunk is like, I saw a Twitter thread literally yesterday about like the beauty of oil rigs. And it's kind of like, right?
I got really into that thread.
It's just this idea of something man-made, but not steampunk so much, but like industrialization, like old factories, that kind of situation. So Frostpunk is, I like that because the generator is incredible, and this idea that you have to keep feeding it. All these thematic threads will kind of like come together. And so, yeah, I'd recommend Frostpunk over This War of Mine. But yeah, I love that studio. Great games. And I got the board games for both of them as well. The board game for This War of Mine is so good, and so is Frostpunk. They are both really great board game adaptations of both of those games. So yeah.
Wow.
Have you
That's
had
impressive.
have you had a chance to play Frostpunk yet? Because I know that we watched you unbox it on one of our
Yes,
earlier
yeah,
episodes.
you did. Dabbled, not so much as full on had it. I think it's, again, with board games, I think you have to kind of like balance your time. We need like a whole afternoon.
Oh yeah,
an hour to set up, and then an hour to
study the rules.
Multiple hours, an hour to study the rules, and then we need a break and all that.
Yeah.
And eventually, you just need your dining room table back, and it's like, well,
This War of Mine, the board game for that is huge. It's the biggest board I've ever seen.
Wow.
It literally took up our whole table. But yeah, it's just a good game. It's just a good story, and I think I mentioned it before, but like the Frostpunk and This War of Mine board games have a scenario book, so it's very similar to the games and the encounters that you come up against.
That's really cool.
nice.
But yeah, so
Nice.
not as cheery as some of the other games on my list, but I don't know why.
Well, yeah, it's incredible it captivated you for that long, considering the subject matter. But it must really you must have found it really compelling, I guess.
I do like good games with challenging stories. I think, and there's not many of them. I think This War of Mine is only the really I'm just having a quick think. I can't really think of any others that touch upon the same topics with the same nuances This War of Mine does. So that's probably why, I keep returning to it, and it's, I don't have a good time, but it's a good, isn't that weird? It's like, it's a good game, and I enjoy playing it, but I also, it's that balance of I don't really enjoy playing it either. It's a different experience. So,
yes, I think I know what you mean.
50 hours. 50 hours. Would not recommend that long. Christ.
I think it's a balanced diet. You can't just always have the good things that make you feel good, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you need the things that make you feel a bit bad and make you reflect on difficult things. And I get it. I get that pull.
Yeah. And then my fourth one is Vampire Survivors. Because
How
of
many
course
hours?
it is. 36.3. So nowhere near as many as other people's. I assure people have played. I see you.
Well, I wonder if that's a good segue into my most played indie game. Which
it is not.
At 62 hours, which was at 60 this morning, but is now at 62 because I edited a podcast this morning.
Incredible.
Vampire Survivors is my most played indie game.
Amazing.
We've already covered Vampire Survivors in an earlier episode. I think we covered it in episode 1. So if you want to hear our full opinions on it, go back and listen to that. But Vampire Survivors has had 2 pieces of DLC since December. The most recent one came out a few weeks ago. It adds a bunch of fairy tale stuff to the game. It adds an entirely new map, and it adds a couple more characters. One of the new enemies is a little gnome that runs towards you like this. It's so good. I've realized, I was thinking about this, the indie games that have captivated me the most are games that I can play while doing other things. So even though I've played 62 hours of Vampire Survivors, it's usually when I'm editing a podcast, because it lets me sort of do something that I can half put my brain to, but still listen to the podcast, and I can pause it easily and go back to the podcast and cut out whatever. So I think most of that 62 hours is from editing the EWS, this podcast, on the Steam Deck when I'm watching telly. So I was thinking, I'm 8 hours into Dredge, which I still haven't finished, but that feels like active brain time. And in my head, I'm like, oh, well, I've played Dredge more than Vampire Survivors, when I definitely haven't. But I think in terms of focused, actual, fully invested in the game time, I don't really put much of it in Vampire Survivors. So it just makes sense as to why that game is so high. My second most played indie game is Factorio with 14 hours. That's the gap between those two games.
14 hours?
So,
Rachel
yeah.
was so
That
shocked
surprises
Discord
me.
cut out.
Yeah, that did come out. What did you say there?
I didn't say, I just thought that does surprise me. You've not played any other games over 14 hours?
Well, I have, but not indie games.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So,
that makes sense, actually.
Monster Hunter Rise is 45 hours, and then
So what's the
Destiny
actual
2,
gap?
and
Yeah.
yeah. So there is a lot in between those two, but in terms of indie games, it's a pretty big gap between those two. Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So let's move on to a very quick question, just to kind of get a gauge of how many games we have on Steam. I have 567 games on my Steam account, which is disgusting. How many games do you two have?
I have 525.
Oh, that's good.
It's not far behind.
Oh, well. Oh, I thought mine was going to be shocking, but actually I'm way behind. I have either, depending on which version of my Steam profile you believe, I have either 204 or 236. And what I think might be happening there is I think one's counting DLC separately and one's counting...
Oh,
one's
right,
not.
interesting.
So I think 204 is probably the real number. But yeah, it's probably a combination of the fact that I obviously play across a lot of platforms, but I don't think that I'm unique in that. I may not have... I don't know. I was going to say I haven't been doing this job as long, but I'm actually not sure because I started mid 2019, so it's not that recent. But yeah, I feel like a lot of it comes from like codes for stuff, a lot of which I have either on Switch or on Epic.
Yeah.
Like if we looked at those, oh my gosh. But yeah, I honestly, I'm so surprised. I really thought that mine would be more appalling, but now I'm like, it feels kind of low now.
Yes, you can feel safe in the knowledge that
still obscenely high compared to the number I've actually played. Like,
well,
you know.
that's my next question. I think half of the games on my Steam account. Actually, I'm not saying I know this. I looked earlier. Just over half of the games on my account I've never booted up once, which is pretty
I don't
bad.
have the data on this, but I can get it because
I sort of had to guess.
With me, so I have 550 whatever games.
Yeah.
And I have maybe 30 or 40 that I haven't played. So I'm pretty sure I've played a lot of fucking games.
Wow. I'm really exposing myself as the fake gamer that I actually am here. I'm not going to come out of this looking good.
Well, I don't know. I mean, playing that many games is kind of sickening as well. Like, because, again, I was looking through when we decided the topic yesterday, because I was like, there must be more. And I went through all of them and I was like, no. That's pretty accurate, like...
Wow.
Because for me, I get rid of games off my Steam that I know I don't want to play, or demos that have stuck around and stuff. So it might be more. So like today I downloaded all the Ludonarracon games. I've not encountered those, but that's like 20 demos.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Ludonarracon, I will get them off my account.
Right.
But yeah... It's close to 500. Well,
yeah,
450.
Shockingly, I've just been counting it, and I've only played 72, which is slightly under half of the total games on my account. Although, I will say, I have noticed with a number of those, Steam has somewhere dropped a memory of when I played it. I think maybe when I've switched from
I have a couple like that.
Yeah.
I've had it when I've switched from like pre-release demos or whatever to the main game. Sometimes Steam just like totally... And also, speaking of Stardew Valley, I know that I've played Stardew Valley for more than Steam tells me. Not a lot more, but I'm like, it's twice as much as Steam will admit. I'm like, where have you gone the rest of my time in Stardew Valley? Like, my save's still there. But Steam is like, you've played like 4 hours. I'm like, I have not played 4 hours. I've played
that's
4 hours of
wrong.
Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
For sure.
It didn't count playtime for a long time as well. So there's a lot of games on my account that have 0 hours because I played them in like the late 2000s. There is that issue as well, I guess. What's the average playtime, do you think? For when you play games on Steam?
I worked mine out because I'm a nerd.
How did you work it out? I couldn't do mine.
I just wrote down my 20 most played games and their playtimes and ran them through a quick calculation to take the average. Which for me, my top 10 most played games I played for an average of 31 hours each. Obviously there's quite a range in that because Max Gentleman is really pulling that average up significantly. But that feels right. You know, the top 10 are all like story heavy, potentially like minigame heavy games that I've played to the end, and 31 hours on average feels pretty legit. Counting the top 20 altogether, it then becomes like 20 hours, 20 and a half hours, which also feels kind of right because then you're onto some like shorter narrative heavy game. Because basically, as you can probably tell by now, Steam for me is like the indie and dating sim and visual novel machine with a little bit of like puzzle games and adventure games, and like there is a theme to what I play on Steam specifically, and it is very much the sort of game that will have like a 5 to 15 hour runtime, maybe 30 hours to do everything. So that's where I'm at.
Do you tend to finish most of the stuff you start?
I'm trying to get better at that because I do, but it takes me like 5 years to finish a 20-hour game.
See, that's nuts. I
You stick with it,
always
though.
finish stuff I begin,
Oh,
especially
I
with
wish I could do
indie stuff. It makes me feel a bit anxious when I don't.
It makes me feel a bit anxious as well, and you would think, therefore, that I would make more of an effort to not start dozens and dozens of games and then never finish them, because that would be like a really cool way of managing my own anxiety, which is what I'm trying to do. Oh,
But also, I don't know, for me, because we write about games, I just feel like I've played so much because I just feel like it's just part of my job and like I need a good base knowledge.
Yeah.
So, and then since I've been writing about it for 7 years now, that kind of reflects in my Steam library, like 7 years of game journo. So that's probably why I haven't worked out my average, which I wish I had, but that's probably why I tend to play and finish a lot more than, is normal, maybe? I don't know.
Well, what were you like before you became a games journal? Did you tend not to finish stuff, or?
So actually, we were going to talk a bit about that, right? Games that we just dipped into and then kind of...
Yeah.
And a lot of, some of them come from there. So I didn't count them, but something like Super Meat Boy, which I played and was like, absolutely not. So that's like 10 minutes. So maybe before, but actually still, I was still kind of like, because it's always been indie games for me. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So if I didn't like an indie game, after 2 hours, you'd be done. So it's like...
Yeah, true.
I don't know. So I don't know.
Interesting.
That's just my personality, I think. I like reaching the end of the year and being like, yeah, I've played all the best indies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure. Absolutely. That's definitely something I'm trying to do more now. I guess, like, I've only been in the industry a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still quite fresh-faced, in one way at least, in terms of the industry. So before, I had a full-time job and I used to try and also keep up with the indie stuff, but I used to find myself bouncing around a lot. Like I would finish like a lot of big budget stuff on the PlayStation, but with smaller indies, I'd sometimes be quite bad at keeping like up to date with everything. So I'm really trying to be better at that now. And I find that now that I am full time, I'm the same as you. I'm like, okay, well, I want to finish it in its entirety to get by the end of the year, so I understand, what's going on and what's on my list and stuff. Yeah, but my average playtime is 5 hours. Like, I'm so bad at sticking with stuff. I'll buy stuff and I'll play it for a couple of hours, and then I'll drop it for something else that catches my eye, basically. Which again is something I think I'm getting a little bit better at.
Yeah, that was me for so long, to be fair.
Interesting.
Which is why I've taken an average of my top 20 and not an average of everything. Although,
I did everything.
Also, looking through it, though, I'm like, actually, in terms of Steam stuff, I can only find one very story-heavy game, which is the sort of thing I usually finish, that I have played for, two, actually, to be fair. I'm forgetting Disco Elysium, because I just wrote about that on the site and was like, I've never finished Disco Elysium.
Oh, yeah.
There's only a couple of games that I've, actively bounced off of, I think, on here. There's a lot of short games that I've finished, and there's a lot of games that I haven't really started yet. But there's a surprisingly low number for me, because I know what I'm like across all platforms, and I know how many, when I go downstairs and I look at my my cabinet of PlayStation and Nintendo games, how many are going to be staring at me like, you bought me in 2018, mother. Mother, when are you coming back? I don't know why I've given them that personality.
Please unseal me from my cellophane prison.
For one glorious afternoon, mother. I was your favourite thing. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this. I've committed to this bit and I really regret it already. This is worse. This is worse than admitting that I like NSFW dating sims. This whole bit, so much more shameful to me. I'm so sorry.
Hey, if it's shameful to do a character bit on this podcast, then someone needs to fucking tell me.
No, because yours are always actually thought through. That's the thing. Yours were not done on the spur of the moment.
Hey, that's very generous of you, but thank you.
Anyway, yeah. The fact that I'm slowly just melting into a puddle of my own brain mush aside, I feel like weirdly, I don't know, there's some clearly activation barrier in my mind, and the sort of games I play on Steam are clearly the sort of games I finish more than average. Don't know why. Absolutely no idea why, but that seems to be what's happening.
I was thinking about games that I'd started and dropped, and a lot of them are on my PlayStation. The most recent God of War, not ever returns to that. No. Cyberpunk didn't return to that. So all the ones that I've dropped are big, long, annoying games that I'm just nope, I can't deal with this. So I guess if we're talking about that, then, and I have less patience for those games because I'm
Yeah.
like, you were this much money, you're this how many hours. If you don't, if my attention is not grabbed within like the first hour, then I'm not. I think this is over, babes. We're gonna break up. Like,
Yeah,
and that's how I felt
totally
with God
fair.
of War. I was like, I don't have time for this. The other thing is, I could be playing 3 really stonking good indie games rather than just play through one chapter of God of War where fucking Kratos doesn't stop chatting the whole time at me. So yeah, I don't know.
I was literally about to say, because I'm like the opposite. I'll finish all those. You know, I finished Ragnarok, and did I enjoy it? Not really. I thought it was fine, but I think I spent like 55 hours in that game. I did everything. Imagine all the indies I could have done in that time. And this year, that's been my New Year's resolution, is fill that time with smaller things that I know will have a bigger impact on me, that I know will enrich and nourish me, and not just,
tasty.
you know, yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think Father Dringus is back. Hello, I've opened up my little slot. It's time for real confession. Can I rephrase that? That's
Your
so
slut,
good.
Father.
I meant like the confession thing.
Father, how dare you?
Let's start again. Hello, it's me. Time for real confession. I want to know 2 indie games you've got low playtime on, and then 3 indie games you own but have never played. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
That's so I don't know. I don't want to sort of make implications against the priesthood, but that's like so diplomatic a way of putting it. It's like, just, you know, just my needs, no judgment here. My apologies to the father.
I literally
lovely
forgot
man.
the questions immediately. I was distracted.
He wants to know, he's gone now. He wants to know what indie games you've got low playtime on, and then also indie games you own but have never actually played.
Right, let's start with low playtime.
Shall I go first? I've got mine written down.
Go for it, babes.
So, really shamefully, I got a code for Outlanders, the game we spoke about that I played in the Next Fest. I've played it for a minute.
yeah?
I need to change that. A minute is not enough. That's way too low. I actually, it's
A
a minute
minute?
because I booted it up by accident.
Oh, I was
I
going to say,
have
you saw
2
the
games
menu.
like that. Yeah, I'm not counting
Oh, do you?
those for mine because I'm just like, no, it doesn't count.
My other game is a Medieval, which is a New Blood developed
Oh.
retro shooter that's a bit like Hexen that I played for half an hour, and I loved it. And that's exactly my kind of game, and I just never went back to it. So I really need to get back
Oh.
into that. Quite shameful.
Those are the worst ones, isn't it? But it's like when you play a game and you love it, and then it just slowly sinks down the list, and you're like, God damn it, one day I will
Other
return.
stuff just takes
And you
over. I
never
know.
do.
Oh, one day I will. No, I will. No, I will. I promise I will.
Bye! As it goes
I will.
further down your most recently played Steam.
Oh, too real.
There's enough
too
time.
Real, guys.
There's enough time before I age and perish, right? I'm going to live forever, right? 3 games I own but never played. I've never played Undertale. I bought that when it came out. I know, it's so shameful.
I was just going to say, though, because that was like my 6th one on my list was Undertale, of most played games.
Yeah.
I played
am
that
I
game
right
so
in thinking I'm
much.
going to love it? It feels like extremely my kind of shit. Yeah, exactly.
1000%, babes. Sorry, yeah, go.
Disco Elysium, again,
Yeah.
never played it. Own it, never played it. Spiritfarer is my 3rd one.
Oh,
which
these are
I
really
was-
good games.
They're really good, aren't they? Well, Spiritfarer, during the pandemic, friend of the podcast, Yolly, like early in the pandemic, she was playing
Yeah.
Spiritfarer.
Mhm.
And it felt like every time I walked in the room, she was at the point where one of the animals in the game, you play like a shepherd, where you shepherd these animals into the afterlife. Every time I walked in the room, she was saying goodbye to some animal. And I would sit and watch it for a minute and just burst into tears. And I don't think
Yeah.
I'm emotionally ready to play that game in its entirety when just a small portion of it was basically killing me. So, yeah,
Yeah.
those are my games.
That's quite an emotional trio. Because Undertale is funny,
bit.
but that game also has a bit of a gut punch towards the end as well. A couple of
Oh,
them,
yeah?
actually. So prepare yourself. And
I will
of course,
play
Disco is on another level. Like, fuck, Jesus.
Yeah.
God. Rebecca, what are yours?
I was about to say, can I do mine next? Because there's actually a surprising amount of overlap here.
Oh, yes, do it.
So my 2 that I have low playtime on are Disco Elysium, which I've played for just under 2.5 hours. And actually, yeah, there's something's gone up on the site today with me talking about the fact that I've only played Disco Elysium for 2.5 hours, and I feel really weird about it because it's, you know, it's such a foundational text for everything I'm into, and yet I just bounced really hard off it after one playthrough. I played it on March 29th, 2020, Steam is telling me, and I swear to God, I put it down, like, frustrated with it, but, like, I'll try again tomorrow, and I have never opened it up again. The other one is The Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker, which is an FMV kind of mystery game, which is the first in a sort of loosely connected series by Diavecchi Studios. Hope I've pronounced that right. Yeah, they do like a series of these kind of like surreal sort of mystery FMV games, and I again played it for one session, clearly 88 minutes in the day after Boxing Day 2020. So, and that was at a point, I think the thing with that one is that was another kind of lockdown thing where I was at a point where I was just overloading myself with stuff. I did actually really enjoy that one, but I was just like December 27th, 2020. I was probably in a bit of a state because it was like the first time I'd ever spent Christmas away from my family, so I was like just trying to cram all these distractions into my life, and I was like, I could start this game. This game looks cool. I'll start this game. And I played it, and I enjoyed it, but I was like, I'm playing 5-6 narrative heavy mystery games at the moment. I just have to drop one, and that was the one that I just had the least investment in at the time, and so I have not yet gone back to it. But those are both games that I do intend to go back to because, you know, they are definitely my thing. The people I know who are into the same things as me are really into them and tell me I should play them, and I'm sure that they are correct. But time in your life, you know, as you were saying.
Yeah.
And my 3 that I own but haven't played, Undertale, which the reason I wanted to mention Undertale was because obviously there are, you know, 130 games on this account that I've not played yet, so I had to be a little selective with what I chose.
Yeah, same.
Undertale was notable because I had no idea, I had no memory of owning Undertale. It must be a Humble Bundle, that's where most of these have come from.
Yeah.
But I was surprised today to learn that I own a copy of Undertale.
That's funny.
The other one, Paradise Killer, we've talked about this before. You know it, I know it. I need to play Paradise Killer. I've owned it for a while.
Yeah, you do.
And the last one is Haven Park, which I mentioned because I installed it just before Christmas. like, maybe it would be nice to have a nice little cute Animal Crossing indie one for over Christmas, and I just still haven't touched it despite sort of queuing it up a few months ago. So yeah, those are my 3.
I forgot about that.
Damn.
Turns out when you Google Haven Park, you get Haven, the holiday park chain in the UK, is the top result.
Oh!
Don't know what I expected.
Oh man,
I love it when that happens.
7.
I typed lake, as in lake the game, into Google, and just immediately was surprised, and I was like, what is this? Where's the game?
Oh man.
I do it all the time.
I do that all the time as well. You know, it reminds me of a funny guides anecdote, which is which I've been reminded of because I'm looking at my most played list, and New World is quite up there. It's probably my most up there work game is New World on Steam. And you know what happens when you try and type New World into like Google Trends? You mostly get cricket results, is what happens.
Oh god.
And Trends has no way of differentiating between New World, the Amazon Studios MMORPG, and probably some Pocahontas movie from the early 2000s, and probably like
oh god, yeah, of course,
various cricket games. Oh my gosh, it was a heck of a time trying to work out what people were actually searching for with New World. What about you, Rachel?
So my brain today. So the games that I've played and want to return to. Okay, so for that one is Ori and the Blind Forest. Honestly, out of my knowledge, this has been a gap for me for so many years. Like I played like an hour when it released and just never returned to it. And it's just been something that's just been eating me away. Like, it's a really big one. It's like big indie as well. And I've just never gone back to it. So definitely want to go back to that one.
Can I throw a very small spanner in the works?
Do it.
That's Microsoft Game Studios, isn't it?
Yeah. So is it indie?
Going back to our...
I refer you back to
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Sorry.
Well...
Yeah, I don't know whether that's... Is that indie or not? I actually don't know. Because in my head I thought it was, but...
When it came out... Oh, but they have the definitive edition now. See, I don't have the definitive edition, so...
Ah, loophole. I like it.
I'm going to play Ori and the Blind Forest, the original version, which probably runs like crap. But yeah, question mark next to Ori then. And the other one was... Rain World. This game.
Rain World.
I had I played it a couple of years ago and I was terrible at it. It's a really like hardcore survival game where you play as like this cute cat slug type thing in this very intense nature world that kind of wants to gobble you up and eat you. And I was shockingly bad at it, like terrible. And I was just like, nah, I can't play this game, fuck it. But so now I kind of want to go back and see if I have the same experience with it, or, you know, install a couple of mods to help me out. But it's something I definitely want to go back to because the atmosphere in that game is ridiculously good, I've heard. And the music and just environmental storytelling. So I definitely want to go back to that one. So those are my two, if not one, if we're brutally taking Ori out of the indie game running.
I'm sorry.
And what was the other one we were answering?
3 you won, but have never actually played, which might be hard for you because it sounds like you've played majority of what you have installed.
The House of Fata Morgana, I've always wanted to play for so long. I know, Rebecca, you'd probably be into that.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it's supposed to be one of the best visual novels of like all time. And it's just been staring at me for so long. And I'm like, I will play it one day. But again, like we said, it's going down the list, And it's quite long as well. And I was like, oh, a lot of reading. Got to be in the right mood.
It's a real visual novel.
It's like a big old visual novel. And the other one is Darkest Dungeon. I've wanted to play Darkest Dungeon for years. The second one's coming out literally next month. And I've just never played it.
You'd
and I really
love
want
Darkest
to.
Dungeon, mate. That's
I feel like I would.
pure
Yes.
you. Yeah.
Oh, one day. And I don't want to play two without playing the first one. So
Yeah.
I need to get into that because
definitely do.
It looks very my kind of thing. The art style is so good as well. Oh.
It's great. And it's great how they get little debuffs and stuff, and they start to go like lose their minds and or get like bleeding out, and that game's so good.
God damn it! So yeah, those two
so
for
good.
staring at me.
There's too many games, pals. There's too many.
Yeah,
There really is. Rebecca, this idea has been such a good engine for recommendations in quite a unique way. Like I feel like we've spoken about games we just wouldn't normally speak about.
I mean, that's what I was kind of hoping for when I threw out the suggestion. I think I'm a little sadder about all the great games that I'm just not sure I have time to play than I was hoping I would be by the end of the discussion. But no, I'm really happy with how this has gone. This has been it's been a cool chance to talk about how we use Steam as well. I think has been really really interesting.
Yeah, agreed. We should probably hear from Dringus. Should we hear from Dringus? Oh, what the hell's Dringus? Oh, come here, Dringus. You want to come in? Oh, thank you for... Oh, my voice has changed. I can't remember what I was doing before. Thank you for telling me your confessions. I absolve you of your indie sins.
Yay! Thank you.
Except for Liam, who got really hung up on the Microsoft Studios thing when it wasn't relevant. I accuse you of being a dumb man. If I can absolve you of your sins via email. You can email podcast@rockpapershotgun.com and let me know your indie sins. Or get on the Discord and do that as well. That's confusing.
Amazing.
Why I would recommend
I can't
that.
wait to see what we get.
Same. We
Friend
actually
of
have
the
access to
podcast.
that. Why am I still doing the voice? We actually have access to that email now, so we can read your emails. So please do send them over. Bye,
that's
Dringus. You were terrible. We'll never hear from you again. Dringus just fell down a flight of stairs and he died. Oh well. What a shame.
So yuck.
God, we had his
Dick and
whole life
sauce.
ahead of him. At Steam.
All the indie games you'll never play. That's quite grim, really. Should we move on?
That's getting too real. Come on, let's do the next bit, please.
So we're going to have a little chat about stuff we've been playing, indie games in that. Rebecca, do you want to start us off?
It's been a busy few weeks, and I'll actually probably get into that a little more later in my hyperfixations section. But I've been playing a few games, although it's been odd because I realised I'm playing like a few visual novels, all of which are by major publishers, which is just weird and unusual. So I literally today finished The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh,
by Sega.
yeah?
And I'm also playing Paranormal 7 Mysteries of Honjo, which is Square Enix. And so usually I'd be like, oh, when you said, shall we do another what we've been playing section, I was like, cool, I've been playing loads of visual... Wait a minute. Every major studio has suddenly decided they like visual novels again.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not indie, and so I can't really go into them. But yeah, those have been a lot of what I've been playing recently. But I've also been playing Betrayal at Club Low, which is this week's, although last week's by the time the pod goes out, RPS Game Club. It's called the RPS Game Club, right?
Yes, it is, yeah.
I'm involved in it, and yet I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me. Yeah, so over on the site, on Rock, Paper, Shotgun, we are doing a newish thing where every month we pick a game, which is either it's usually something that's on Game Pass or that's quite cheap. It's quite short, so that just as many of the staff and readers as want can play it and go get together and have a big live discussion about it. And I've joined in this month's with Betrayal at Club Low, which is a Cosmo D kind of like an RPG kind of point and click adventure mystery thriller type game, which I have now completed several times, actually, because it's nice and short.
Oh, really?
Well, I say completed several times. Cosmo D is one of my favourite devs immediately, having never played any of the games before, because they let you save manually across like 10 save slots, so you can actually experiment with different options, different outcomes, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. That is that is one of my crusades, I should say. Let's be honest, I have multiple crusades, but one of them is like...
We love
point
to
and
see
click mystery games. You should be allowed to manual save and then load and then choose your outcomes. And
Yeah.
So yes, I've been playing Betrayal at Club Low. I don't know how much I should say on the pod because we have so much coverage of it over on the site as well. I don't know whether to just like redirect people towards particularly because I wrote an article on it yesterday, which I am hesitant to just regurgitate in full. But at the same time.
Go for it, because not everyone's going to read it.
That's true.
I think it's definitely worth doing it. Yeah.
And I want to hear it from your mouth, your lips. I want to hear your words.
Cool. My brain is just on rails today, and I'm like, I could probably more easily just replicate a 500-word article that I wrote yesterday than have an original thought today.
Go for it, babes.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty relevant to what we've been talking about because I was comparing it to sort of Disco Elysium. In that I think it's got a lot of similarities with Disco Elysium, right? They've got this sort of like it's not just in that they're RPGs with like a lot of stat checks in them, although they are both presented like that, but there's the fact that they have the sort of the seedy underworld sort of settings. They're not really set in the real world, but they are set in something approximate to the real world, so it feels quite familiar. Yeah, and I was basically just comparing it to Disco Elysium, not in that I don't like Disco Elysium, because I do. I think it's an amazing game, but it is an for me, at this point, it feels a bit inaccessible just because of how huge it is and how the one time I played it, I got caught in this loop of failure where I was like, I'm going to have to restart this entire game, which was really off-putting. And like the fact that with Betrayal at Club Low, you can, if you had to do that, if you had to restart entirely, it's like a 2 to 3 hour game. So
yeah, it's so short.
It's so short, but it's
nice.
It brings all the same, I would say it brings all the same kind of atmosphere. Obviously, like the world building of Disco Elysium, I know I've barely scratched the surface, but there's so much to it. But then I suppose with Betrayal at Club Low, it's like the fourth or fifth in this sort of series of loosely connected. Is it Off-Peak City games?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like there is that wider world to it. If you want to go into it, I have not yet, but I would like to. It's just I don't know. It scratched the right itch for playing an involved RPG, but in like the time it takes to watch a movie, which was just really satisfying because I love RPGs. I rarely get to play them anymore because, as we have discussed many times, there is just so much going on. There's so much to keep up with. RPGs are always the first thing in my experience to kind of slip. You know, I'm still... I was late to Mass Effect and I've barely got any way into Mass Effect. I'm barely into like Cyberpunk 2077, all these big RPGs. And yeah, Disco Elysium, as I say, one that I've bounced off of. Whereas Betrayal at Club Low, you get the full experience. And I do think it is such a complete experience, but it's so blissfully short. I'm all about the short games.
Also, the difficulty settings help. The fact that you can make your own scenario helps as well. So you can, if you don't want any challenge at all, you just want a good time, you can whap it on easy and then just like have a bunch of fun rolling lots of dice and meeting cool characters. Like, yeah, I've only played through it once, and that's exactly how I played it. I did it at the easiest difficulty because I just wanted. I think I played the first maybe 10 minutes, and something died. I don't remember how I died. I think I had an existential crisis or something. And then so I played it again. I was like, I kind of just I want a good time with this. So yeah, whapped it on easy, set my own scenario where I think people are a bit more lenient with your chaotic behavior that you can do in that game. That the actual like stuff you could do is bonkers. So they're a bit more like, okay, cool. You kind of, yeah, I get the vibe with me. And so yeah, had a great 2 hours. Exactly what you said. Like, it's such a accessible game that you can just play within the time of like a movie or whatever.
Yeah, it's delightful, and I would really love to be able to say, come and join us for the live pod discussion, but that'll be in the past by the time the episode goes out, which I feel sad about. But do definitely check it out if that sounds like your thing. There's a lot of coverage of it over on our PS site at the moment, and just a delightful little snack you can complete in a single evening.
Love it.
Yeah, for
Absolutely
sure.
love games like that. What have you been playing, Rachel?
I've been playing, I played a preview for a game that's not quite out yet. It's The Cosmic Wheel of Sisterhood, and it's Deconstruct Team's new game, which doesn't have a release date yet, but I think there might be a demo for this one. Let me double check, because they seem like the kind of studio who'd put a demo out there. But if you're kind of familiar with the team's work, they did Red Strings Club. They've done a collection of smaller games called Essays on Empathy. They've been on itch for a heckin' long time, just releasing small games about kind of bonkers situations. But the thing that kind of ties them all together is that these games are incredibly smart with the way that they make dialogue, or like kind of inspire dialogue. So in Red Strings Club, you play as a bartender who's trying to like coax like corporate espionage out of like the people who drink cocktails there, and you do that through making cocktails and like kind of reading into their lives. And so that vehicle of, being a passive bartender, tell me your woes kind of situation, is ways that people can like kind of like a priest, they just kind of like unload onto you. And so this is kind of the same. Do you like how I tied that in? Where did he go? Oh no, he's dead, isn't he?
In memoriam. That's fine.
And so this game does the same thing. It takes a very kind of bonkers idea, and this conversational aspect of it is in this game through tarot reading. You read people's fortunes, and through your cards, the cards that you pull, and from them wanting to know stuff about themselves, you get to you kind of piece together a portrait about who you're speaking to is and what they're about.
That's cool.
So you play as... Also, I love this game, but her name's Fortuna, and I think that was a bit too on the nose, but that's just me. Fortuna is an exiled witch who has to live out her sentence of a millennia on an asteroid floating through space. And she gets kind of bored. She doesn't have Netflix or an Uno deck on her, so she decides to summon a god and make a pact, which is, girl vibes, was it? What am I trying to say? Like sleepover. The stuff you do at like a girly sleepover. She's like, let's summon a god. So yes. She girl things.
Classic sleepover activity. Absolutely.
So she summons a god, and this god is also, they share this kind of forced isolation. This god has also been asleep for thousands and thousands of years, and is not woken up from their slumber for as much, as often as they'd like. So they kind of bond over this idea that they're both very lonely. It's been a long time, and they're the first people they've both spoken to in, thousands of years. Or in her case, 200 years, which is, oof. And they make a pact. The deal is that he will grant her magical properties and give her a fresh deck of cards, and she can gain magical abilities when she gives people fortune-telling readings. I played an hour of the preview. Very good. It was like the first hour of the game, so it's the whole setup. Another cute thing is that when you can make your own tarot cards. So when you kind of make your pact, it's over the course of 5 days, and each of those days is dedicated to building one card. So they cover the 4 elements, and then the 5th day is like the final day. And so over the course of 5 days, you're given a number of backgrounds, images, characters to essentially collage yourself a card face. And depending on what options you choose and elements you decide upon, it dictates what the card means when you pull it. So it could mean pride, prosperity, power, revenge, all these different elements, which, you know, the combination of stuff you can build is ridiculous. I played it through twice, and there was ridiculous number of options you can choose and cards you can make. So yeah, you'll make your cards, but just before your pact is sealed, another witch comes to visit you, and she says, "Hey, I've been assigned to your case. We think something might be up, so I'm just here to visit you and tell you that's what's going on. Hey, can you read my fortune?" And so Fortuna's like, "Go on, okay, that's fine." And so you kind of get a glimpse of how this card deck tarot situation is going to play out. So when you're reading people's fortunes and the cards that you've created and are put into play, it's like you can pull pieces of story threads out of that character. So for an example, like, so she wants to know, she asked the question, what's my job going to be like? Like, what's the future of my job? So I pulled a card out of my deck, and it was one that was like prosperous. So it was like, oh, the good thing is you're going to be successful at your job. Great. And then I pulled another one, and I made this like really like intense card with like this like soldier who's bandaged up, like in like a hellish like situation with like a sword in her back. Like, some of the images you can choose from are really evocative. So I pulled this card, and the description that comes with it is, oh yeah, but to get that, she's going to have to kill a fellow witch, which is drama. And yeah, so I told her that. She obviously wasn't that happy about it. But it's just this idea that the cards that you make will pull pieces of information from different characters, and because of the number of cards, like different combinations, like it blows my mind how much information you can, like, each person, each player will be able to uncover about the people they meet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a cool concept. Like, their concepts for their games are so cool. This is another one that I would just never would have thought of it ever in a million years. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing the rest. And like I said before, there's no release date yet, but hopefully this year or maybe next year.
That sounds absolutely incredible. And the card system sounds really interesting. I love that you're making these cards that's then encouraging them to talk to you about the things that are related. They've been making this for a while, I imagine, because Red Strings Club came out 2018, I want to say.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, I think the thing is they're only a 3-person dev team, so I don't know whether they were having downtime because Red Strings was pretty big, or maybe they've been making this for many years. The build seemed really strong and complete. It seemed there was nothing like weird or off about it. It was the idea is so well thought out. Because there's another aspect as well that I'll touch upon very quickly, is that each day you're also asked a question, so you can kind of build yourself as a character as well. And you can pick up from a number of different answers. But after hearing her story, I kind of wanted to answer like this young woman was out for revenge. She was out for blood, that she wanted to sacrifice her coven to get the powers like that she wanted. And so I chose all these really like salty answers. So the god would be like, "Hey, what do you want the most out of life?" And I was like, "Power." And he was like, "Oh, cool. What are you willing to sacrifice to get these powers?" And I was zero hesitation. I was like, I will sacrifice my whole coven to get these powers. Wow. And he was like, "Vibe, okay, cool, yep. Oh, right, awesome." Because the character, the god, is really funny as well. He's very down to earth, so he's just like, yeah. So I was playing her as someone who's very, she wanted revenge, and I played through a second time. You can go through a different route as well, but I like that one the best. I like playing as someone who is hell bent on getting justice for what happened to her.
That's so cool.
And so it's just all these different ways of character building all kind of combined in this game where you're building yourself through small interactions. You're pulling threads out of other people for small interactions. And yeah, relationships will be built or demolished based on what you choose, which is, yeah, fantastic.
Wow. That sounds incredible. Like, I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that because I loved Red Strings Club, and that just sounds like an advancement on that very particular like style they have of making games, and how character driven they are, and how strange and unique their settings are.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So yeah. Again, it's called the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's a cool title, but I feel like it's a bit too wordy for me, but it does capture the vibe of the game, so I can't really hate on it too much. Like, it definitely captures like what the game's about. So, but yeah, the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood.
It sounds like I've been sitting here this entire time thinking this game sounds amazing, and just something like on the edge of my brain was trying to connect, and I was like, I loved Strange Horticulture when I played it last year, and it sounds like the sort of game that will, although not exactly the same in the way that it's implemented, it sounds like it could occupy that same sort of headspace, you know, where you've got the kind of the business of being kind of in this unusual profession, and you're just kind of like, you've got your day-to-day going on, but you've also got these sort of amazing cosmic things happening around you. And okay, I'm so glad that the connection got made, because I was just sat here like with my slow Thursday brain and a busy week, just like, there is something in here that is trying to
But that's a really astute observation, because the way that you grow and choose different plants in Strange Horticulture is a cool way of like storytelling. Like, these mini games are vehicles for interesting conversations between people, which having them just talk about it would be boring, right? So having these ways of interacting with people in a shop situation, or being a bartender or a witch, is great. It's just a really cool vehicle in which to tell your spooky story. So yeah, that's a really good connection for sure. Liam, what about you? What have you been playing?
I have been playing a game called Against the Storm by Eremite Games. This was given away to our RPS supporters who have subscribed for an annual plan. I got very jealous that they were getting it for free, so I reached out to the dev, who very kindly provided me with a code, and I have poured 6 hours into this game in the last 4 days, as we've just discussed in section 1. Quite rare for me, but this game feels like it was custom made for my brain.
Oh my god.
A management-based city builder, a resource management-based city builder, I should say, where you play as a viceroy for this queen who lives in this little city on a volcano. And your job is to establish these outposts in the wilderness to gather resources for the main city. But what happens every couple of years is there's this cataclysmic storm that encroaches and stops at the volcano city, and it destroys the surrounding area, including all of your outposts. And that's the hook of this game, is that it's a roguelike city builder, which I have never played before.
Oh, that's cool.
Everything is randomized. All the tiles around the city, all the biomes are randomized every time the storm comes in. So then you reach out for a couple of places, you establish outposts, and you've got to start again every time. And each tile, each biome has different stats. So just like in any roguelike, they have their own unique traits, and the buildings you start with are also randomized, and the resources. So you establish a little city, and you'll think, okay, well, what kind of resources do I have? Okay, well, I have clay, I have eggs, and then you go try and work out, well, what do I do from this point? Like, what kind of production lines can I set up, and how do I keep my citizens happy? Because the citizens are different animals. So humans, they're really happy if they have pie. But beavers, they really love pickled goods. So you've got to try and keep them happy by establishing these different production lines with the randomized buildings you're given, and also the randomized resources. Now, the aim of each run, basically, is to complete a number of goals for the queen before she grows so impatient, she basically says, fuck off out of there, come back to the city. So you're constantly fighting against this ever-growing bar while the queen's, tapping a watch, being like, get sorted. And every time you complete a goal, which are also randomized, it knocks down her impatience and pushes you towards victory. And these goals are things like deliver 50 eggs, or keep your humans happy for 30 seconds, things like this. And the main hook of the game is in these biomes, these tiles that you're building these little settlements in, there are different glades. There are small glades and larger glades, which are more dangerous. And the game basically incentivizes basic management activities. So cutting down trees is how you explore in this game. So you enter a glade, and the glade will have something in it, such as a pile of resources or an event you have to try and solve. And it's so complex. There's so much going on. You know, you're trying to be like, okay, well, I need to get pickled goods for my beavers. But to do that, I need 4 different types of vegetables, and I have 1. Okay, so I've got the vegetables, but actually I either need barrels or I need pots. Okay, well, I can make barrels using these buildings that I have, but oh God, I need this different type of building. Maybe if I complete enough tasks, I can be given that building, because every time you complete a couple of tasks, you're able to get a reward of a different type of building. And why have we never had a roguelike city builder? It works so well. It's ingenious. I can't believe how good it is. Because you know what the best part of a city builder is? The best part, the cat is biting my hand. Can you just give me a second, babe? Is that all right?
She knows the best part.
I was going to say, I really wanted to commentate and let people know that Liam has done an incredibly admirable job. That entire description, there was a cat pretty much in your face the entire time, and you just kept going. It was so pro.
I'm so used to it now.
So pro.
She's so cute.
So the best part of a city builder is the start. You've got this blank canvas, and you're just looking at it, and you're thinking, okay, well, what can I do here? What kind of things can I put here? And it's really exciting to start building the buildings and do these little micro decisions of what you're going to do next and thinking a couple of steps ahead. And then against the storm, once you get to that point where it starts to get a bit dull, you either win or you lose. And then you move on to a completely different biome. And after a couple of games, so let's say about 5-6 hours in, it wipes the board clean and says, okay, venture out, try again. What's going to happen this time? And you're leveling up. Every time you level up, you get new buildings added to the pool, new perks, new buffs, new debuffs, new animals, foxes, harpies. You know, harpies love working with cloth, but they also need a bathhouse with some tea to be really happy. And this game is fucking fantastic. Last episode I said Dredge is the best game I've played this year. Against the Storm has took it. It really has. It's
well, now I have
so
to play it.
Bloody good. It looks incredible. Each biome is different. It sounds amazing. The soundtrack is so good. Little old Liam, who loves the settlers, who is just being desperate for a smart, complex, resource-based management sim. I'm living right now. I cannot stop playing it.
Oh, man.
It's absolutely fantastic.
I'm so glad, because as soon as you said roguelike city builder, I was like, yeah, we've lost Liam to this.
Yeah, I'm done.
He's
You'll never see
disappearing
me
into the
again.
distance. He's found his new home.
It's interesting, though, because a lot of roguelikes, especially with randomized features, can get really frustrating super quickly. So it's good to hear that this one has a good balance of how much of it is randomized are we talking here? You said resources, goals. It sounds like a lot of it is.
A lot of it is. And I think it's in early access, and I think they've been working with community loads. You know, most people in the comments are saying, oh, well, you know, they've changed this, they've added this in ways that benefit other things. But I think the trick is it has, each time you embark on a new settlement, you can choose from, I think, 5 or 6 difficulty modes.
Oh, okay.
And that helps. That helps a lot. So I'm playing on the easiest at the moment, and it's still challenging. But it's great to know that if I ever start to get a little bit bored, I can increase that. And I think that might be the trick there, is instead of trying to hyperbalance everything, they've given you that difficulty modifier that kind of just makes things a bit more punishing. So I think at the moment they don't eat as much food. So I always have an abundance of food. So my people are always naturally going to be that base level happy. But obviously I get more rewards if I try and do a bigger difficulty. But yeah, I don't know how they're doing it. I think the team are just really smart.
It looks nice as well. It looks
really nice looking.
Really nice. Yeah. The buildings are detailed. The characters are detailed. That's the thing with city builders, right? Is that you want buildings to stick out and represent what they do, right? So with Woods Cutter's House, you want watermill. You want the water going through making bread and stuff. So this is nice in that every building, just from the screenshots, I know exactly what it does.
Yeah.
It looks nice. It looks really nice.
Considering it's dark fantasy as well, which I think can be quite a grotty looking visual style. So the things you are collecting, a lot of the food, if you have like gatherers, they'll be getting these horrible little shrimp parasites to eat, or you get a lot of meat from these dead like leeches. So there are parts of it that are quite grotty, but somehow it still manages to look visually appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Against the Storm.
Incredible.
Don't miss it. It's just come to Steam. It was an Epic exclusive for a year, and I think it's overwhelmingly positive already on Steam. It does not need my recommendation to boost it, but check it out because I am lost. I'm lost, and I will never be found, and I've never been happier.
I'm adding that to my wish list.
Good.
How much is it? Nice. Oh, there's a discount right now as well. 25%
There
off.
is.
So it's £13. Very nice.
Worth
Very
every
nice.
penny. Shall we move on to some hyperfixations?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
So all that's left before we finish is our hyperfixations, the things that have been occupying our brains for the past fortnight. Rachel, would you like to start?
Oh, yeah, go on then. We were having a chat yesterday, us three, and I don't know how we started it. I think, Liam, you brought up how much you liked Gossip Girl. And I was like, well, have you seen the YouTube video essay talking about each season of Gossip Girl? And then I started popping off about how much I really like YouTube video essays. And so, yeah, that is my hyperfixation. After our conversation, I went and watched that one, then watched a couple more, and then I started making a playlist of the ones that I actually do want to watch, and then I went onto TikTok and then looked at the ones that people were recommending, and now my to-watch list is like 20 videos long.
Wow.
And so this was definitely my hyperfixation for, if not last night, it is now. I'm in it. This is real.
That's a fresh hyperfixation. That's amazing.
Fresh from last night. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like... watching YouTube, I've been watching YouTube for years now. I've seen the rise and fall of many different fads and crazes, but I'm really living for this long form YouTube content that's been around a couple of years now, where people just get really in depth about the most random things, and people find it incredibly interesting, including myself, and I'm sure you too as well. So yeah, I have a tier system of video essays. I have my God tier video essays. That's my playlist. Then I have great video essays, which is another playlist. Then I have another playlist for video game specific essays. And then I have another playlist for ones that are a bit more serious that I probably should go back to and like rewatch, like, and maybe with like proper pay attention. But my favorite ones are the ones that touch upon pop culture, weird internet stuff, and just, yeah, the most mundane, but also incredibly interesting niche topics. Those are my top three. So, yeah, I was like, should I give some recommendations? And then I was like,
please shout
there's
them out.
there's a
Absolutely.
lot.
What was the channel name? You shared a channel with us yesterday.
Right. So Mike's Mike is my ultimate favourite one. He is very much focused on early 2000s TV shows. He's done Pretty Little Liars, Gossip Girl. He did Glee. By the way, I've not seen any of these shows. I think I saw the first 2 seasons of Gossip Girl, but I don't know anything about Glee. But I watched like his 4-hour videos, and I think he's done 3 of them as well, about each of the seasons of Glee, because this guy is all personality. It's just recaps, so they don't really go into that much depth, but his personality and like, he's amazing. And yeah, he's about to do Lost soon, which I cannot wait. I've seen a couple of Lost essays, but with his personality, it's going to be so fun to watch. So again, Mike's Mike is like, my top one. I mean, there's Jenny Nicholson, she's
Amazing.
great. There's Sarah Z. So maybe I should give like I'll give like the best video from each of them. So Jenny Nicholson is known for her Vampire Diaries video, which is, again, never seen it. Once again, incredible video about the Vampire Diaries, and you know, the kind of cultural shift around it, and just how weird it is and slightly out of touch everything was at that time, and the writers' strike. Great. Awesome. So definitely that video. I also love Quentin's I think his channel name is just Quinton, but he's done a bunch of ones on iCarly and Victorious, which are two Nickelodeon shows that I, again, did not watch, but also are incredibly interesting. And he just makes them incredibly engaging. And again, he's just really funny in general. And then more like internet deep dives. Super Eye Patch Wolf has done a couple of videos on Garfield, so like the way that Garfield, like the internet kind of worships Garfield now. He's done one on Sonic the Hedgehog. He did a really good one on The Simpsons as well, like the bizarre modern day reality of like how we look back at The Simpsons and all the subculture around it. So he's really great. If we're talking about video games, Jacob Geller, his video game ones, I mean, to be honest, they're not necessarily just strictly about video games, but normally he'll use something as a jumping off point. So like any of his stuff, I'm talking Fear of the Cold. He did one called Fear of Depths, which is amazing. I'm pretty sure he's done one about the sea, Liam, which I'm sure you'll appreciate.
Yeah,
let me see if I can find it. So he is Artificial Loneliness in Red Dead. That was really good. The decade-long quest for Shadow of the Colossus's language. That was so good. Oh, Last Secret even. Yeah, I mean, I could go on. There's so many. Oh, that was the other thing I did. I've pinpointed 2 very specific videos for each one of you from different people.
I like
I
this.
think you might like.
That. Okay.
So yes, so you go.
While
you go.
We've been talking as well, I've thought of another channel you'll like, so I can gift back at the end of this.
Oh my god.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just going to quickly find them. They're definitely in my god tier essays, because I don't want to get the title wrong or shit. How do I do this? Right, Liam, for you, it's someone called Nakey Jakey, and his one is called Pizza Hut PS1 Demo Discs. It's about the history of, you might have seen it, of like when people were like when video game companies were putting demo discs in literally everything, and Pizza Hut did one. It's 5 minutes long. It's really short, and he is slightly unhinged, slightly chaotic, and yeah, with your, you love all your retro stuff, so definitely that one for you.
I love that you know me well enough that you pinpointed Nakey Jakey is a good match for me. What I will tell you is not only am I obsessed with Nakey Jakey, but his album from last year, one of the best, and his song Not Dead Yet helped me get over my fear of flying. And I listen to that song every time the plane takes off as the chorus kicks in. It has become a comfort to me. That's how important Nakey Jakey is to me.
That's
so
yes,
good. You know me very well, my friend. That was what you recommended. And that was the first video I ever saw by him. So very good recommendation.
Me too. And you know what? He's done some others. Like he's done one that I like is like Mums in Video Games. I really like his critique
that was great,
on
that one.
The design of Red Dead and The Last of Us, like Naughty Dog games, that they're outdated. Like I really like that. But yeah, the Pizza Hut demo disc one is iconic.
So good.
And then for you, Rebecca, I've picked out a Sarah Z one because she does a lot of fandom, shipping culture, Tumblr stuff. And the one that I thought for you, she's done a lot. She did the Supernatural ship. She's done John Locke ship. She's done the Onceler fandom from Tumblr, which is bizarre. But yes, the one... Oh, here it is. Fandom's biggest controversy, the story of pro shippers versus antis.
Oh, good lord. See, it's so interesting that you bring that up because this is all the fandom stuff that I don't get involved in but find really interesting from a like sociological perspective. So,
I'm the same. I'm like, I was never really involved with these kind of like, with these like rabid fan bases, but that one is about the idea of people like supporting ships and people who are anti-shipping, and I think they use the Hannibal ship, it's Hannibal and Will from Hannibal, as a good jumping up point of like toxic relationships and queer relationships and how a lot of that is intertwined. It's really good, so I highly recommend that.
I will have to check that out. Thank you, because it's quite funny that you mentioned like Supernatural and Sherlock and all the stuff that was like really in the zeitgeist.
Yes,
like at that certain time. Oh my goodness, that's like a real nostalgia hit for me as well. Just talking about that.
Yeah,
all
same.
That stuff there as well.
It's like a slice of internet history that
Yeah,
I was
it really
not a part
is.
of, but it's fascinating.
Like I am glad to be well out of my sort of like teenage years in fandom spaces, but it is so interesting to kind of like look at it at one remove.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure.
Sarah Z's very, very good for doing that.
Check that out.
Yeah. So I'll link to everything. My long list.
Yeah, we'll put it all in the
people.
description.
We'll
Definitely.
check it all in the description. I'll put those two and a couple of the other ones I said. But is there anyone I'm missing? I don't think so. I mean, there's so many. Do you guys have any favorites?
I've got to throw mine back now, because when we were talking about this yesterday,
Yes.
I couldn't think of any like particular examples that I was into. And then I finished work and I went downstairs and watched some YouTube, and I put on Pushing Up Roses, who does some really, really great like 15-20 minute recaps. Which again, it's so funny. I got into her stuff a few years ago because she did at the time a lot of retro 90s and early 2000s game content. And she's kind of moved away from that now, but she does now a lot of recaps of like 1980s, 1990s mystery TV shows, like children's TV shows, sort of teenage, like Are You Afraid of the Dark and stuff. She's really, really good. And literally last night I was like, I don't really watch essays about stuff I don't know. And then I went and watched her 15-20 minute essay, just like deconstructing this terrible rom-com that I have no intention of ever watching, but she just watches them and recaps them in such a delightful way. And her like flagship series is what is it? Murder, She Wrote, which is another show that I've never watched, but I will happily watch her just summarize an episode, because she's got a great eye for the absurdities, but also the way that the show is constructed, kind of on a perspective of like this really long running show and the things that they reuse and the ideas that they revisit, and when it was at its peak and when it was getting kind of like formulaic.
Yes.
And, yeah, her stuff's really good. So
I
highly recommend her.
I recognise her Goosebumps videos for sure. I've definitely seen them floating around in recommendations, so definitely gonna check out the Murder, She Wrote series. And the Goosebumps.
It's just so good.
That's a
It's
great
great to stick it on.
Yeah.
I will very quickly say I watched one the other week by a YouTube channel called Lady Emily called Plastic Beach, the masterpiece that almost ended Gorillaz. And it's about the third studio album of... I'm a big Gorillaz fan. It's one of my least attractive qualities. But the Plastic Beach album is kind of interesting because it has a bunch of lost media surrounding it.
Really?
And they just kind of go over the album and what came before and what happened after, and the relationship with the two founding members of the band and sort of how they split apart after that album and then how they came back together. And really good, really interesting. Would very much recommend it. I think Jacob Geller actually got me into that channel. Jacob Geller, by the way, who is not only subscribed to the RPS YouTube channel, but is subscribed to my personal YouTube channel and has been for about 5 years, which is one of those things that makes me feel physically ill whenever I think about it. Because
that's incredible.
I absolutely... he is like my biggest influence. He's so good. Great recommendations. Awesome. I feel like we could just have a 2-hour-long chat about video essays in general.
That's so meta.
Thing we're all
just
connected
chat
on.
about chats about
things.
Oh,
I'm going to watch Fantastic Beach one.
Watch.
Because I was into Gorillaz lore for so many years.
Were you really?
Like the whole like Noodle getting cloned and then Ace coming in. Yeah,
oh my god, you need to watch that. It's all about that and how it's never... I can't believe you're into Gorillaz. Yeah. Oh no, we all have the same brain.
I liked Plastic Beach. Demon Days is my favourite, but I did like Plastic Beach as well.
Correct.
But I like animation, so like when all their music videos are beautiful to look at, so I got very into the lore. Yes.
Oh my god. Do you have the book?
I do not have the book. I didn't know there's an art book.
No, it's not. It's written by it's written by the band members, called Rise of the Ogre. We'll get into this off air. Rebecca, what's your hyperfixation?
Yes. Oh, good lord. Okay, so this one requires a small amount of preamble because I feel like it requires context. I'm already justifying myself, which I don't love, but yeah. So it's been, I mean, I don't know, it might come through in the sort of energy in this episode, but it's been a heck of a week at RPS. It's like... It's a busy time in games journalism. Generally, there's like 4 AAA games coming out in a very short span of time. We are all quite tired as we're recording this. It's Thursday evening on possibly what's going to be one of the busiest weeks of the year. So if I sound croaky and exhausted and like I'm losing my train of thought, I am. And that's why. I have this weird feeling all week I've had is that I'm almost in like this weird like toxic relationship with AAA games. And that I'm like forced to spend so much time thinking about AAAs at the moment. All I wanted to do was come here and talk about indie games with you guys because I was like, oh, I'm so looking forward to this part of the week where I can just like detox and
Yeah, I get it.
think about like fun little indies because there's so much going on at the moment. With all that said, with all that being said, you guys both know that one of the games that I am covering a lot in this big AAA rush is Honkai Star Rail, and so help me, I don't know if it's actually that I'm really enjoying it or if I'm just in some sort of like Stockholm syndrome situation, which is how I've sometimes referred to my relationship with Genshin Impact, which is the last game by the same developers at Hoyoverse. But yesterday, the game launched yesterday at the time of recording, right? I have played the intro too many times now in the last 2 months.
Is it 4 times?
Three times, I think. I was in the
So
final
many
close
times.
beta. I was in the press preview server, and now I've had to rejoin again and start from the beginning. And as I was playing this bloody prologue for the 3rd damn time, I was like, you know what? I'm actually enjoying this. Like, this is not actually a bad time. I like the sort of setup, and I like the characters. And you know the production is very, very, very slick and nicely put together, and I'm actually pretty compelled by what's going on. And so, yeah, I feel like my hyperfixation is slightly a result of circumstances at this point, but I cannot deny that somewhere in the mix, yes, that became the thing that is just tumbling around in the back of my brain for this week, this fortnight.
Amazing.
I've started like shit posting about it.
yes.
Which is always a sign that something has kind of grabbed you as well, I think. And I don't want to say too much about it because I know that talking about a Hoyoverse game on an indie games podcast is like going to be super contentious, so I'll probably leave it there. But yeah.
No, it's amazing.
Honkai Star Rail has grabbed me by the throat and won't let go.
We had one chat about it and I downloaded it. I was like, yeah, you know what? This feels interesting. And it looks gorgeous.
It looks so good.
It's, just a bunch of really very well animated anime pro tags.
Well animated, well acted. The music is good. It's this is the thing. Liam and I did a video about this earlier this week as well.
We did.
And kind of at the end of that, as I was still thinking about it, it kind of something else percolated through my brain. It takes me an incredibly long time to think at the moment. I am exhausted. But I was thinking about, the fact that there is this contentiousness around these gacha games, which is what they are, monetized through loot boxing. It's not a good time, but the games are really good productions, and that's kind of, the weird like cognitive dissonance of trying to get in, I think these are good games. I don't spend a lot of money on them. I don't spend any money on them. People are spending a lot of money on them, and that is like really bad for a lot of those people. And it's like, I think it's kind of got this nuance, right, of I think the monetization does detract from these games, but I was like, but detracting from something and completely negating all the good things about it are not the same thing.
Yeah.
And, that may be a really basic revelation, but that suddenly popped into my head and I was like, oh, okay, right. I'm kind of, that's the level I'm on with it, if that makes sense. I'm like,
I don't think that's a basic observation. I think that's an observation that can be quite difficult to communicate to people. I think it is a complicated conversation to have as well. Like, I'm a big Fortnite person, but I'm well aware that Fortnite exploits the FOMO of young children, has led to bullying in the school place because some people might not be able to afford battle passes and special skins, and any gacha game has exactly the same issue as well. And I think what I really like about that video, just to shout out that video, it's on the RPS YouTube channel, is that you gave a very nuanced and balanced impression of the game, including all of its gacha elements, and you even spoke about like the drop rate, and I think that's the important part, is this game has so much artistic merit and worth as a game, and it's just propped up by this quite rancid monetization solution.
Yeah, for sure.
It's literally our job to talk about it, right? It's our job to address it and be like, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't want to be that person who's like, oh, we should divorce the artistic merits of something from the context surrounding it. Because I don't believe that.
Not. No.
But at the same time, I'm like, I don't believe in just saying something is all bad because part of it is pretty shady, if that makes sense. Like,
Yep.
I don't know. Probably going to get some flack for this, but honestly, that's where I'm at this week, is like really kind of intrigued to see where this game goes. And goodness knows I'm going to be playing it for a long time for work. Yeah. So, yeah. My hyperfixation, is it just a hostage situation? We don't
That's the first time on the
Let's
podcast.
after you.
Rebecca's being held in a hostage situation over her own hyperfixation.
Oh my god. Blink twice if you need us to uninstall it from your computer.
No, please don't. Please don't, because one thing, I just have to re-download it for blooming work, and then it's another 3-4 hours of my day. Oh, don't even. No, it's a cloud save. I will say that for it.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
That's good.
I'm never going to have to do that again. And that is maybe part of why I sort of reached this euphoric point where I was like, well, enjoy it now, because you may know it back to front, but you're never going to see it again unless you look it up on YouTube. So,
Honkai Star Rail, everyone. Free to download now.
Goodness sake, Liam, do yours. Draw attention away from me.
I'll be very quick. Your boy's read another book. Well, look at him. Well read.
Ooh.
I know, right? So, to start, in the last episode, I recommended a book, and I said, I listened back to this, it irritated the shit out of me. I said it wasn't very profound, and then I went on to use the word profound 4 more times. Let's not go over how I don't understand words and their actual meaning. But I have finished another book. This is a book called Stoner by John Williams. It was recommended to me by Ed, our lovely friend and colleague Ed. This book was published in 1965, and it is about a university lecturer. It goes over his life. He's born just before the turn of the 19th century and charts his rise to become a lecturer and dealing with things like the First and Second World War. I think this is the best book I've read in the last 10 years, and I'd never heard of it. It has had like an actual effect on my life, and I cannot stop thinking about it. It is a book about nothing. It's about a small, quiet life and a man who just sort of lives for a period of time, and it goes from his childhood to literally when he dies. And it is beautifully sad. It has pockets of actual, genuine joy and moments of real sadness. And that last third has just made me think about, what is a good life? What does it mean to be happy? And what does it mean to be successful? And what are the things that are important? And what a lovely thing to have. What a lovely thing to experience through the medium of a book. Yeah. Thank you, Ed. I just had to message Ed when I finished it on WhatsApp. And I just said, yeah, I'm going to be sad forever now. Thanks. That's a genuine thank you. Really good book. Very much recommend it. Stoner by John Williams. Not about someone who smokes weed, which is what I assumed he meant when he first recommended it.
Right, yeah. Damn, I've never heard that bit before either. Oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Is it
Wonderful.
Is it American or is it British?
Yeah, it's American, yeah. He's a lecturer he's an English literature lecturer at the University of Missouri or something.
Right.
But yeah, very, very interesting.
Oh, what a lovely one to end on.
Thank you for classing the joint up a bit.
Yes.
Well, my other hyperfixation was going to be Celebrity Hunted on Channel 4. So once again, I thought, I'll pick a book.
Wait, though.
We're overrunning. We'll talk about that offline. Next time. All right, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
I always hate wrapping it up. I love doing this so much. Right, let's finish up. Thank you so much for listening to Indiescovery. Your support really is appreciated. If you'd like to get in touch with the three of us, you can do so by emailing in your questions to podcast@rockpapershotgun.com. You can also chat to like-minded individuals about the wonders of PC gaming over on our Discord server. It is full of so many lovely people. I know who you are on the Discord. Thank you so much for your kind words. It warms my heart every week. Link is in the show notes to that. If you'd like to support the pod, you can do so by rating and reviewing us on iTunes. 5 stars, please, not 1. Or your podcast provider of choice. Spotify ratings do help, I think, so please do interact with it. If you enjoy the pod, it lets us do more of these, which is good. You can also tell all your friends about the good times you shared with us here today. Make sure to also check out our sister podcast, the Electronic Wireless Show, which is very, very good and very, very fun. For all your PC gaming needs, go to rockpapershotgun.com or find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and regrettably, TikTok. Until next time, it's goodbye from me, Goodbye from Rebecca.
Bye.
And goodbye from Rachel.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.